I've already been up for 2.5 hours working out, getting stuff done. Show prep. Oh, did you read Fran's Beard's Daily Thoughts and One Final Pithy Thought? That is show prep, man. Hey,
show prep.
Batting in the leadoff position is a 6'1", 189-pound junior from Pottsville, PA, Kevin Scarbinsky, the Birmingham lead. Scarbo knows, one of the best sports writers, U.S. Basketball Writers Hall of Fame. He joins us. Then Fran's Beard, who's writing some of the best sports content out there, and GatorbaitMedia.com, and Ben Troupe, 84 Reasons podcast. Big Ben from over in Savannah joins us. Hey, smash the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. Allow notifications on your Android and iPhone. Tell your friends and your family and your neighbors, look, you can listen to us live or you can listen to us at your leisure, okay? And also follow the Buddy Martin Show and watch that Monday through Thursday night
right here
on YouTube, right here on this channel. It's right here on this channel.
Just different
so you get your morning dose and in between.
Yeah.
And
that's what people don't know, bro. Yeah. Like right on this channel, you can just go to one of the, when you go on our channel, you see all the different playlists.
Yeah.
You know, in those playlists, every show's in there from every day. And then you can follow that playlist, and you can even do YouTube music podcast. There's a multitude of ways to join and be a part of what happens. So, just check us out. You'll see a little subscribe button pop up in there during the show as well. If you're watching on Facebook, you can like the page, and the Buddy Martin Show page rebroadcast the show as we're all part of the same network here. So
it's fun.
It is fun. There's a lot of content. It is actually fun. And it's getting bigger, and we're doing a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun in the future. So
and
tonight, that's our Monday promo.
Yeah. Now tonight I'm going to be at the Touchdown Club in Memphis. Houston Nutt's going to be speaking for the part of the Spring Speaker Series. If you live in Memphis or anywhere near Memphis and you want to go, cocktail hour, social hour starts at 5:30 in the p.m. and at the Hilton in East Memphis on Ridgeway. And Houston Nutt will be here, and then we'll have a dinner, cash bar, and talking. But it'll be about 3 hours of football, fellowship, and fun. And a little bit of yarn
in Memphis.
Yeah, walking in Memphis. Yeah, I heard that guy was a real tool. They ordered barbecue, and he goes, "I don't eat pork." And they said, "Well, you're walking in Memphis." So anyway,
touchdown in the land of the Delta Blues. Rain.
It's been pouring up here. Look, hey,
okay, let's go.
Brenden, you are like Barney Fife on that singing.
Because I just made 40 tzatziki chicken things with my daughter at 5 a.m., bro. And we got it done, bro.
You're talented. Hey, look over my shoulder. See that book right there? Uncommon and Unfinished. And then you see next to it, you see Rodney Orr, Bigger Than Bama. And then the next book over there, Native American Warriors. And then Saturdays to Remember. Lauren, what do you got? The Vault, After the Arena, the Cotton Tag, Greatest Names in the SEC, Neyland Stadium. I need a gator or something in the background of my set. I need to get it ordered. I tried to get someone who was down there recently. But look, here we go. We're coming back. Get ready.
Let's go.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, we are back with you. Kevin Scarbinsky is going to be joining us momentarily. Brenden, this time of year, you draw a lot of thoughts and inspiration, and Kevin's logging in right now from the spring practices. Some people did it differently. I think Ole Miss was the most unorthodox this year, playing hide and go seek, tag, and throwing water balloons at each other. But it got a lot of attention. There are a couple of things going on. I'm going to get into this with Kevin Scarbinsky today. Are people hiding players by not releasing a depth chart? Because you've got all these analysts and all these number crunchers, and Kevin Scarbinsky, I think, can identify. Good morning, Kevin. Pottsville is proud of you. Glad you're on here. Last night, I tell you, we were putting the show together, and I'm like, man, the takeaways from spring practice, basketball, the portal, all that stuff has kind of stopped temporarily, but had a fun show Friday. Tony Barnhart and Paul Feinbaum on there talking college football, all kinds of takes. And I had to ask Paul about Mildred. I said, if my calculations are correct, Mildred would be 104 years old today. You haven't heard from her in a long time, but have you seen her around Birmingham, by the way?
No, I have not. Good morning, guys. I'm sure you had a lively show with those two guys on Friday.
Oh yeah,
with their institutional knowledge, their senses of humor. Those guys are good. They're good at what they do.
Well, you are too. I can guarantee you.
Guys on like at the same time too. I mean, that's a rarity. I think
Yes.
in itself, because those guys don't do stuff like that normally, you know. And I think that's kind of interesting. That's what I think it'll make. It really makes it. It will make it an all-time classic because, you know, getting those two to like interact was great because I think they enjoyed it on top of anything else because everything is so the same anymore, right? You know, it's so that's I think what's fun about what we do, all of us do online, which is sort of bring back that whole old school talk radio sort of genre about sports, which I think makes it interesting.
Yeah, and that's why I think, Kevin, having you on here, and I was texting with Pat Dye Jr. last night about coming on. He's moving this week, and I'm going to try it for next week, but I'd like to get y'all on together. I think what we're longing for, we're starved for, and I hear it from people is, like, I'm going to the spring speaker series. I wish they'd asked me for guests. I would have said, get Kevin Scarbinsky up here immediately. Last week we had Paul Feinbaum. Tonight we have Houston Nutt. Next week, Greg McElroy. And then June 10th, Cole Kubelik. But love to get you. Do you like speaking to touchdown clubs?
Oh, I love it. I've done a lot of it through the years. Some of my favorite memories, good and bad, positive and negative, have come on evenings with guys at quarterback clubs, guys and gals, I should say. And for example, the best, I got to share this with you guys, the best ad lib I've ever heard didn't come from a comedian. It wasn't Robin Williams. It wasn't Chris Rock. It wasn't George Carlin or Richard Pryor. It was a man at the Gadsden Quarterback Club in Gadsden, Alabama. I spoke there years ago, and before I got up to speak, before they introduced me, they introduced guests of members who were at the meeting. Yeah. And one of the members had brought his father-in-law, who was from New England. Yeah. So I thought, okay, I'll have a little fun with that because I like to be spontaneous. I don't write down a formal speech. I like to, be in the moment. So when I got up to speak, I said I was glad to know that I wasn't the only person in the room from north of the Mason-Dixon line. Yeah. And from the back of the room, a voice immediately yelled out, "Damn, we only brought one rope."
I mean, in Etowah County.
That will get your attention in a hurry. Turns out that gentleman was a local attorney in the Gadsden area. But I got to give him kudos, man. That was, you talk about quick thinking and making a biting comment at the same time. I was a little nervous for the rest of the speech, by the way.
Well, I'm telling you, we got to get you to come up. I'll talk to him tonight. I'm going to say if we filled out our fall lineup because, Kevin, your depth, like Buddy, like Franz and Ben Troupe are going to be on with us in the second half. When we get everybody going together, it's getting that band going. It's like, come on up on stage at the Grand Ole Opry. I want to ask you your takeaways from spring practice. Any kind of, I know we don't have divisions anymore, and that was really funny last week because the first question to Paul Feinbaum was, he goes, we don't have divisions, but he made a joke out of it. But we got 16 teams now. So give me the teams that you think are going to be the top ones going in because the magazines are going to be on the newsstands in about 14 days. So just if anybody's keeping track.
What's interesting is I thought, just looking at spring practice as a whole, it was really overshadowed to a great degree by discussions about the portal. Who's coming, who's staying, who might be going, who might be staying, who's coming. And I just thought there was less, in my circles, there was less chatter about spring practice. Now, I should add also that, Alabama going to the Final Four in basketball overshadowed it to a great degree.
Yeah.
There was less talk, I thought, in this state about spring ball at Alabama and Auburn than perhaps I can remember in a long time. And I think again, in Alabama's case, certainly basketball had a lot to do with that. So it was hard to. There weren't a lot of, again, locally. There were some storylines. Obviously, the wide receivers at Auburn, Cam Coleman, one of those fab freshmen they brought in at that position, looks like he's the real deal. He's one of the guys that stood out. But something else occurred to me as you were framing that question, Rob. 16 teams. No divisions. That means somebody's going to finish 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. And it's going to look a lot worse than finishing 7th even in a division or 6th in a division when you start going from top to bottom. And I wonder what effect that's going to have on coaches' futures. We already know that patience is thinner than ever. Among boosters and decision makers at these schools. What's it going to do? What's it going to do to their egos when they finish 14th or 15th or 16th in the SEC?
I think that is the question, because we used to have that, and it was horrible to finish 9th or 10th in a 10-team league. But when we went to 12, obviously we hadn't done it. I think it's going to hasten. The patience isn't there much, but I still think Tennessee's a perfect example. You can't change coaches on the 3-year cycles. You've got to give them 4 or 5 years, because you're going to end up going 14 years between double-digit win seasons like Tennessee did. It was 2022, 14 years after Fulmer was fired, before they won 11 games in a season.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? And that's, that is something. Auburn is in that spot now where, you're in a danger zone. When you fall down in this league, it's not easy to get back up, and it's easy to stay down for a while.
You think?
Yeah. I mean, look at Florida.
Yeah.
Look at, and Florida was, for all of the issues during the Mullen era, and you're seeing some of them now. And you saw some of them on draft night with only one player being drafted. They kept their streak alive, their best in the nation, I believe, streak of draft choices, at least having one every year for a long, long time. But for that program to have only one player drafted, I mean, that's astounding.
That's the telltale sign, the canary in the coal mine, right?
Yeah.
Yes. That is a good sign. And an interesting fun fact from the draft.
Wow.
And of course, that was another thing I thought that got a lot of attention, as it usually does, the NFL draft. And in this state, it got a lot of attention because, Nick Saban went out on a high note. His last draft, if you will,
has he gone though? That's the problem.
Well, that's just it. He may never leave.
He's gone out, but I don't know if he's gone.
And
he's
he will
on
have
that
guys.
note.
He'll have more guys drafted that played for him, certainly the next couple of years. Yeah. But here's a fun fact, guys. Nick Saban, after his first I'll ask you a question. What do Nick Saban, Kalen DeBoer, and Hugh Freeze, who are all intersecting in different ways now, what do they all have in common in regards to the NFL draft? Nick Saban, Kalen DeBoer, and Hugh Freeze. And I won't give you a long time. You won't get this because it's a really esoteric statistic.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
After Nick Saban's first full season at Alabama, the 2007 season, the first draft was 2008. Alabama had 0 players selected.
Exactly.
Right.
After Hugh Freeze's first full season at Ole Miss, the next draft, they had 0 players selected.
Right. Wow.
And after Kalen DeBoer's first full season at Washington, the next draft, they had 0 players selected.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That is obscure.
I'll
Look
tell
at
you another weird one. Texas from like 1936,
deep.
the first year of the AP poll, and I think Oregon and Ohio State were played for the national championship that year. From 1936 to 2022, Texas had at least one player taken every year. I don't think they had anybody drafted in 22. And when Bob Devaney came from Wyoming to Nebraska in 62, Nebraska had a streak all the way to 2019 with having at least one player drafted. They broke it in 2019. That's a cool. You should have saved that for Savant Friday, Kevin. We got to get you back on. I'm using that one. I'm going to give you credit though. The Birmingham lead and Scarborough knows that is an awesome stat. Yeah.
Yeah, there was there was so much discussion about the draft here. Of course, Auburn didn't have a player selected until the 5th round. That hadn't happened since I forget now, 2013 or so. You know, and here's the one. Here's the one that got me in trouble with the Auburn family, at least the more vocal / obnoxious members of the Auburn family on Twitter, was that Kalen DeBoer had more offensive skill players selected in the first round that Thursday than Auburn has had. Get this, since 2006 combined.
Wow.
Offensive skill players, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. Auburn has had one since that 2005 draft class when they had 4 first rounders total, but 3 on offense. Ronnie Brown, Cadillac Williams, and Jason Campbell, their entire backfield from 04 from that incredible undefeated team.
Yeah.
But since then, the only Auburn offensive skill player drafted in the first round has been Cam Newton. Think about that.
Yeah.
It's 2006.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, Michael Penix Jr. and Rome Odunze, quarterback wide receiver from Washington, both went in the first round this year's draft. And again, I don't know what it means. It's a fun fact. It's something for people to debate. But it does tell you that while Auburn has had good players, certainly on offense over that time, it's had good running backs, some good receivers, some good quarterbacks. It hasn't had greatness at those skill positions for a long time.
Yeah. I'll tell you another crazy stat. Ole Miss in the portal brought in 2 of Washington's starting 5 on the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line that played Michigan for the national championship. They're doing a hell of a job of assembling offensive linemen. And I would keep an eye on Clemson because Matt Luke, after taking off a couple of years, had that big balloon payment from Ole Miss, is back at Clemson. But you're right about and Brendan's comment, the canary in the coal mine. It's very telling, Kevin. I mean, I bet Alabama's at 50 first-round draft picks since Saban got there.
Yeah, it lags a little bit, obviously. Yeah. But once he, that 08 draft, they got shut out. And then in 09, Andre Smith was the first rounder, the offensive lineman, and it's just been an incredible run since then. The NFL is in the business of winning. Yeah. And winning means you make money. And so they're not drafting guys out of courtesy, out of friendship with coaches, out of guys who've been in the league, although Nick was there for a very short period of time with the Dolphins. So when they start drafting players, they're doing it for a reason. That is an incredible compliment. It shows 2 things. And I think this is the one thing, I've said this for a long time. Nick Saban, I think now it may not be the case, but he always got credit for being a great recruiter. Yeah. And he had great recruiters on his staffs. But I don't think he got enough credit for developing those players. It's easy to say, well, yeah, you sign a bunch of 5 stars and 4 stars, they're going to go to the league. Not necessarily. Not in the volume that they have from Alabama since 2009. Correct. And that is a procurement success as well as a development success. Yeah. It's recruiting and development. And that's why they had the greatest run that we've ever seen and probably ever will see.
When that Super Bowl 4 years ago, Tampa Bay against the Chiefs, you had on that field one 5-star, Leonard Fournette out of St. Augustine High School in New Orleans, who left Jacksonville after 1-15 and ended up with Tampa Bay. And then you had 22 4-stars and I think 18 or 19 3-stars, and then 2s, 1s, and not even ranked. That's crazy. Another interesting idiot savant stat, Dr. Andrews said they did a survey of both rosters in that Super Bowl, Tampa Bay with Tom Brady and the Chiefs with Mahomes. Like 93% of the players on the two rosters combined were multi-sport athletes in high school.
Yes. And you talk to any coach in any sport at just about any level, and they will tell you the same thing. Do not specialize at a young age. Yeah. Don't play, and my sons played basketball and baseball growing up, and I actually started a travel ball team, so I don't want to may sound a bit like a hypocrite here. I started a travel baseball team for my son and his friends when they were 10. Now, we were a mom and pop operation. We weren't the St. Louis Rawlings prospects.
No private.
Who eliminated us in the Cal Ripken Invitational in Myrtle Beach when the kids were 12. In the quarterfinals, we got to the Elite Eight with our ragtag bunch of kids from Jefferson and Walker counties here in Alabama. Wow. But we did it for fun. But my sons played every sport you can imagine, except football. And this is another subject we've talked about, coach safely and player safety. And I did not let my sons play football for one particular reason. When my older son was in 7th grade, he got a concussion playing baseball, sliding headfirst, stealing second base.
Wow.
And then about 10 days later, kids just horse playing around, I think with a little bit of a mean intent. Some older kids, some 8th graders in middle school, knocked him down, and he hit the back of his head. So he had 2 concussions within 10 days. And, second impact syndrome is serious.
Yeah. And
it affected him in different ways for a pretty long period of time. So I was ultimately maybe overly vigilant, but after seeing what he spent the last month of his 7th grade year in school basically in a semi-dark room, no electronic devices. They've changed that now, where they don't, isolation. They don't think now is the best thing. That some form of brain stimulation, some form of activity is good. And I'm not a doctor, and don't take or a therapist. Don't take my advice on that. But check with your own medical care personnel on those issues. But take head injury seriously, because that's what a concussion is. Don't say, oh, well, he just got his bell rung. No big deal. Shake it off. Shake off the cobwebs. This is your brain we're talking about, people, or your child's brain.
Well, that's what Coach told us. Just you're good.
Yes. How many fingers am I holding up? 3. How many fingers am I holding up? 3. Okay, you're good.
He would take that whistle and he'd wind it up, and he just
I like
right on the side of the helmet.
Ask any. The older
that.
You go back, the more. What was the quote at the CoachSafely.org banquet we had at Vestavia Hills Country Club that night, August of 22? That was a great night when Lou Holtz was up there with Paul Feinbaum, and Lou Holtz made a reference. He said, "Hey, I was a kid. I was playing football, and one time I jammed my thumb, and I told my coach I jammed my thumb." He goes, "Son, 5 years ago, I landed on the beach at Okinawa. You'll get over it." That's like my dad's listening right now. "How many times did you break your nose, Dad?" He goes, 3 or 4, I think. I said, "How they just." I mean,
that's the thing. I mean, look, I had some head injuries, man. I got knocked around a few times, and it was not like we didn't go for any brain scans. I'll tell you that. It was just like, oh yeah, you're good. I took a baseball bat to the head. Like this.
You took a baseball bat to the head?
Yeah, to the head. Yeah, no kidding. So my coach was this incredible engineer, smart guy. Worked for Martin Marietta and all the MX missiles. Like he was crazy smart. Walt Tomoka, he was a great coach. No knock on him, but he would take the kids that were struggling a little bit with, making impact on the ball. You wrap a carpet around like a pole, a soccer pole, wherever we were, just like a goal, and a big piece of carpet, and then he'd tie it off. And then he was like, I just want you to simulate, impact, like when you're looking here down the V, and he just stop here. He's like, don't go crazy with it, but like, here. Well, I was gonna go crazy with it because I was the age. I was gonna show the other guy that did it before that was hard. Anyway, I stepped up to that thing and I took a full slice of that thing. I'm all 12, 11, 13 years old, and that bat went wham, whack. Just right. I mean, instantly, right into this, like right here into the side of my head, and I was just like, bleeding and crazy, and like, well, we put ice on it, and it wasn't, so super bad. The swelling wasn't crazy, so it was like, well, yeah, we went to the emergency room. It was like, doctor kind of pushes on it, and he's he's like, you're gonna have a concussion. Probably should just, take it easy for a couple of days. Don't let him sleep. Wake him up every couple hours. He'll be all right. Let us know if he has any problems.
Wow.
My mom would say, well, that's the strongest part of your head, son. You'll be okay. You hit it up here. Yeah. And so, like Riedel made those football helmets where you would just, like, in high school, a coach would just check them out. Like, you didn't get your own specially fitted helmet. It was like, hey, you're a large.
Yeah.
Put that on there. It's going to hurt a little bit. You'll be all right. It says Riedel across your skull and your neck.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Hey, that's a good example, though, Brenden, that, and my son's experience, you can sustain concussions in any sport. Not just in sports, but certainly in any sport. Hey, soccer is one of the most frequency of occurrences, the volume where the volume of concussions happen, heading should – young kids should not head the ball, for example. Guys, did I ever tell you about the time I died on a baseball field?
You did
I'm
not.
Exaggerating slightly, but it was
Great
coach
lead.
pitch. I was coaching coach pitch. Kids were 7 and 8, and I would vary my distance to the batter based on how good the hitter was, how many times they hit the ball, how often they hit it. I didn't have any protective gear on. We didn't have an L screen. And it was the last game of fall ball.
Suicide.
We play on Sundays in the fall. And there was the sweetest little boy, little 7-year-old. He was a little chunky, a little heavy, but he had not hit the ball hard for, it was an 8-game season. Something like that. Hadn't hit the ball hard all year. So I get a little closer for him. Well, I threw one. He hit it. He stepped into it like Babe Ruth. Mm-hmm. That ball hit me right here.
Closed his eyes.
Whoa.
Line drive right here.
Wow.
Now, at that point, I kind of lost. I think I know what happened, but the people who were observing tell me what really happened. It lifted me up, my feet up, and I went face down in the dirt. I thought I bounced up immediately and was fine. It was like, let's go. Let's play come on, let's go. I'm fine. And I remember the umpire saying, you need to stop. My face was covered in blood, broke my nose. I was very fortunate. And a couple of the moms said they really thought I was gone because he hit that ball so hard and I went down so quickly. Yeah. And I had, for about 2 weeks, I was never diagnosed with a concussion per se.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
For 2 weeks, I was in a fog.
Yeah.
I couldn't think straight. I couldn't clear my head. I couldn't shake the cobwebs out. I couldn't. That is the classic definition of a concussion.
We're bringing Franz Beer and Ben Troupe, who just checked in here, and I'll save my story for next time of how I got knocked out warming up with Coach when he threw the ball and I didn't have a glove on and knocked me out, and I threw almost a no-hitter. Franz Beard and Ben Troupe joined the show today. Good afternoon, morning, good evening, good afternoon.
Kevin, my fog has lasted all my life.
Let me tell you what a fog is, Kevin. You're right. Like duck season from mid-November till the first week of February, you're getting up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning every day duck hunting. Not every day, but just about every day. And you kind of don't remember it. It's kind of like when my kids were young, they start playing sports, and there's years you just don't remember. And I think the old, he just got his bell rung. As Ben says, playing in the NFL is a collision league. And something real quick, talking to Dana Marquez on this show a lot, who's longtime director of equipment operations at Auburn, he said, back February of 2017, we were down there visiting in the football complex, and Dana was showing us around. And at that time, and Ben, you were out of the league by then, but he was saying we're doing a retrofit on every football helmet, and it's going to cost about $1,750 per helmet. And you know those, and I will say this, you know those foam things they put on the helmets? What I found out is from just a knowledgeable person that the helmet manufacturers, they don't make those. So if you use those and there's an injury, it's like, oh, no, that's not ours. So there's so much being done though, because my brother-in-law played college football for Virginia Tech, was a tight end, and played rugby into his 50s. But that CoachSafely.org organization, Kevin, that you got going and coaching all these coaches on what to look for, that's going to save a lot of lives. It's not going to make the game softer. That's not what we're about. It's about using your head, literally using your brain and thinking ahead. I think it's great. That's how we're going to say, because in 1906, guys, just here's a pivotal point. We had 19 college football players die that season. The Georgia State Legislature met in Atlanta, and they were going to abolish college football. The mother of the Georgia player who died pleaded, said, that's not what my son wanted. They chose to continue the game, and then Teddy Roosevelt got the NCAA started. But, you know, I guess their initial intent was good, but now it's a mess. But that's kind of where we've been here before, and we've made a lot of progress, but we're never going to stop working on it, Kevin, and everybody.
Well, Rob, hey, first of all, just full credit. I don't deserve much credit. I helped for a while as communications director with Coach Safely, and now I help out now and then on a case-by-case basis. But Jack Crow, the former Auburn offensive coordinator, former head coach at Arkansas and Jacksonville State and other places, he and Dr. Andrews, this is really their baby.
Yeah.
You know, the idea to protect kids in youth sports, because there's no oversight. You know, you're coaching 10-year-old girls soccer or 8-year-old boys baseball, or 9-year-old peewee football. You don't have medical personnel on the sideline. You are the medical personnel, so you better know what to do. First of all, to prevent injuries if you can, but what to do when they happen. And that's all credit to Jack Crow. Like I said, Jack Crow and Dr. Andrews and so many others who have dedicated themselves to keeping our youngest athletes safe, so they will go on and continue to compete when they get to junior high, when they get to high school, and they get all the benefits of athletics, even if they're not Ben Troupe and they go on and play at a much higher level.
Yeah, because Ben, we almost lost a lot of. Listen, I remember in Memphis 15 years ago, football took a hit. Middle school teams that traditionally had 50 to 60 kids had 15 and 20. We damn near that was a hit. I mean, Ben, are you coaching right now?
Oh no! I respect coaching too much as far as like what goes.
Helping out is what I'm saying. Yeah.
I mean, I'm always willing to lend a hand. I mean, I learned a lot about the game. You know, when I was a part of the Heads Up Football USA Football campaign. Yeah. Like 2015, 2017, and I think the thing about the sport is it's always the same. Daddy loves the sport. Mama runs the sport. If Mama say he ain't playing, he ain't playing because
that's right.
The dads, they just want to see their kid go out there and play the game, but moms want to make sure, okay, what is the worst case scenario? And what they do in a Heads Up Football sometimes, which I think is pretty dope. They do these drills to where, just say you on the football field got 20 fields, and some kid that got hit and he's out, he ain't moving. They have a protocol to where they'll say they'll radio, they'll call 911, they'll send the kid that's on the team to go all the way to the road to flag the medical personnel down. And it's just a drill now, just a drill. And the reason why they do it is you got to show sometimes what could worst case scenario. Now these moms don't like it. The moms don't like, but when it happens for real, you want to know what to do. Because what'll happen is it's rare now. These out of all the football players, it's rare, because kids too young, man, they go into cardiac arrest. Like they heart's too small. But when you talk about the fact that the kid ain't moving and there is no protocol, that's what'll kill it. It's not if it happens. It's when it happens and somebody don't know what to do. So they do that sometimes. Heads up football to where a kid on the team got to flag, these medical staff in, and I think that kind of stuff. While it is scary, I'm like the mom. You don't want to see the game go away, but when heads up football do clinics, they doing it for moms. It ain't a guy in the room. It's a bunch of moms in there learning how a tackle's supposed to look, learning how they're supposed. Because if mom knows what to do, mom is only yelling the technical stuff. Get your head out, Billy. Make sure you use your shoulders but I think the thing about it is too, it's one of those things to where if it's a gruesome injury on national TV, they won't show it. They'll say, "Oh, go to commercial."
Yeah.
Don't show it. When it comes to
correct.
When it comes to these young men. Most people ain't starting football in the 9th grade and gonna want to continue on. Football is like boxing. You've been doing it a long time. You've been doing it since you were 7, 8.
Yeah.
But I do think I do agree with what you said, Rob. It's making the game safer. It ain't making it tougher, and that's the only way the game gonna survive.
Yeah, and look, friends, talking about that, and that's something moms see more games, I can tell you, than the dads, because that's just how it is. And the more you can educate people, the better off everybody is. Franz, you're right now. I want to switch. You wrote some stuff last week about the portal, how we can put some structure into it. And Kevin, I don't know if you saw this, GatorbaitMedia.com, Franz's Daily Thoughts. It was maybe last Wednesday or Thursday. And Ben, you saw it, I'm sure, and Brenden. It made more sense. But if you could kind of go back and let's just kind of do that again, because I haven't read anything that makes as much sense, that seems so easy to implement to make the portal and NIL and all that stuff work better. Because if you don't watch it, you're going to lose the fans. You don't want to do that.
Well, first and foremost, there has to be some structure that is not there in the portal. And you can and if we're going to make it work, and that's key question there is if we're going to make it work, because it takes the biggest issue is it takes a commitment that I don't see right now is there. Right now, all I see are people who are out there grabbing for whatever they can and saying, well, it's all about the money and on and on. It's not all about the money, but there are things that can be done. Number one, a kid who comes to you, even if he's an early enrollee, he has got to stay in school through the fall semester and one spring semester to be eligible to transfer without sitting out a year. Now, you're going to be able to transfer at any time. This does not stop you from transferring, but what it does is it says that if you leave before this, then you're going to have to sit.
Yeah.
The second thing that has to happen is this. You can't, if you transfer and you are still taking remedial courses, you have to sit a year. I don't care if you're taking one remedial course. Maybe you had a bad math or English background, whatever like that.
Yeah.
But if you are taking remedial courses, you got to sit a year. Now, you would be amazed. I know you guys wouldn't, but I think the people in the audience would be amazed how many football and basketball players are taking remedial courses into their 3rd and 4th year of eligibility.
Yeah.
They're kept eligible because they're making A's or B's in remedial courses. First and foremost, you shouldn't be in school if you can't read, you can't write. That's just common sense. But we've got too many kids. We would do ourselves a great favor. I'll give you an example. If we would tell kids who can't read and write, etc., like that, to come here and be a Ben Hanks. Ben Hanks came here. Steve Spurrier went out on a limb for him, and Steve Spurrier knew Ben Hanks had it in him. And what he did, though, was he went out on a limb and got him in school here and said, look, that was back in the day when they had this thing called Proposition 48.
Yeah.
where you could take, I think, 5 kids in your class, in your recruiting class, who were not academically eligible, and they had to sit their freshman year. And Steve Spurrier petitioned John Lombardi to get Ben Hanks in the school. Not only did Ben Hanks get in school, but he passed all his remedials in first year, graduated on time, and now has graduate degrees. And Steve Spurrier will still tell you.
And that's what the whole rule's for. I mean, I agree with you. Kevin, you remember Prop 48. It changed a lot of things. But now, I mean, and Franz just gave a perfect example of why you stick with people. But I want to switch gears now and get back into spring practice, and because the portal goes along with it. During spring practice, and Kevin, you alluded to it earlier, that Alabama going to the Final Four kind of overshadowed a lot of Alabama's spring practice. But what, and I'm going to bounce it around and go Kevin, then to Ben, then Franz, kind of do a round table, fast pace, about a minute or so. But what were your takeaways from, again, spring practice? Anybody jump out at you that maybe, wow, I didn't know they were that good?
Well, for me, and I'll mention this earlier before Franz and Ben came on, I mentioned this earlier, there's a lot of optimism at Auburn that they're going to take a nice leap forward in Hugh Freeze's second year, and particularly on the offensive side of the ball, that wide receiver group. And the one who stood out the most during the spring with some, especially in the spring game, some spectacular catches was the freshman from Phoenix City, Cam Coleman.
Yeah.
He's a guy at a position in which we see a lot of talented players make an immediate impact as true freshmen. The real question, though, is, they're all in with Peyton Thorne at quarterback.
Yeah.
Was he held back last year by the lack of talent in the wide receiver room? Is he a better quarterback with better players around him? That's usually the case for most quarterbacks. So how big a leap can he take in this second year? Can they be more competitive? Because as we said earlier, Auburn's in danger. Auburn's fallen off, with the coaching changes, Gus's, the end of Gus's tenure didn't go well, particularly in recruiting, especially at the offensive line position. And then, Brian Harsin was a disaster. And you fall backward in this league, and there are a whole bunch of teams charging right past you.
Yeah.
So can Auburn get back? And there's a lot of optimism there that they can be more competitive, not necessarily win the league, but, win 8 or 9 games, have a winning season for the first time in 4 years. That would be a start.
Yeah. Yeah. They're mired in the worst cycle since 48, 49, 50. Ben, who jumped out at you in spring practice? What team in the SEC? Maybe, I know we talk a lot about Florida and Auburn and Alabama, but is there any other team or a team that people think is really going to be good that you're like, I don't see it?
I mean, obviously you're gonna hear a lot of whispers, coming out of Tennessee. They got a big time quarterback, in the last recruiting cycle. And Tennessee is always going to be a head scratcher because where they're going to be on offense. Like you just know, what Coach Heupel is trying to do. I mean, so where they're going to be. I think Tennessee as a whole is going to be a head scratcher for me because they'll have a really, really good season. They'll have an outlier season. They'll have a Joe Milton, a guy that's going to, rave a lot of people because of his arm strength and things of that nature. But I think the thing about Tennessee is just like Auburn. Tennessee is good. College football is good. Tennessee is good. The SEC is good. Tennessee, Auburn, and Florida do not have in-between. They're either good or they're not. They don't have an in-between, and that's the problem. That's the problem with them. They're either really, really good or up. And so I think Tennessee is going to be one of those teams that this year is, how can Coach Heupel continue to, make strides? Because obviously Tennessee is back in the national conversation, but because they have really, really good moments, not because they have really, really good teams. So I think that I'm going to be, the jury's going to be out to see, how this young is going to get in there and take over this offense that's been proven. Everybody thought, can you do this high-powered offense, want to run a lot of plays? It's working. It's worked, but is it going to help in the wins column is what I'm looking for. But I do think Tennessee is going to be one of those teams to watch because obviously Georgia is the best, team running right now, and Alabama's Alabama. But Ole Miss, they're going to shake up a lot this year, man. I think Ole Miss is going to be one of those teams that Lane Kiffin doesn't get the same credit for developing quarterbacks like a Lincoln Riley will, because Lincoln Riley, number 1 overall picks Heisman's.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin can develop these quarterbacks, man. So
I agree.
I'm looking forward to see how the Ole Miss boys look. We get to deal with them in the swamp this year. At the end of the season, we'll see how many healthy bodies we have at that point.
That is going to be a fun one. Franz Beard, you've heard these two guys' picks. I like that outlier term. I love that. Anybody out there in the wilderness, you're going, hey, don't forget about these guys. I know you got a surprise or two up your sleeve.
Well, I'm going to start with one big surprise, and that is Georgia taking a quarterback in the portal. Now, Jaden Rashada isn't going to be their starter. Carson Beck's going to be their starter, and Carson Beck, I think, is quite possibly the best quarterback in the country. So, but the fact that Georgia has to go into the portal to find a quarterback to be a backup, that tells me something about we've talked about how superior Kirby is as a recruiter, and Kirby does a marvelous job.
Yeah.
But the portal has caused even the best recruiter in the country to have holes in his roster that are gigantic holes. We may not think of the backup quarterback as a gigantic hole, but it only takes your number 1 going down one time, and all of a sudden you have a 3-game stretch because my quarterback has a high ankle sprain or an MCL, not an ACL. An MCL, you can be back from an MCL sometimes in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But what are you going to do during those 2 weeks?
Yeah.
That to me was a very, very big surprise. Kentucky is talking again like, oh my gosh, we got the great offensive line back, and we got Brock Vandegrift and everything like that. I'm not sold on Kentucky at all. In fact, I think Kentucky is back to 6-6 again, which is, for Kentucky, you measure wins in dog years at Kentucky. A 6-win season in dog years, at Kentucky is like a 12-win season at Alabama. Okay, it just happens like that. But I'm not sold on them being that good. I think Arkansas is in trouble. I think they're in very, very big trouble. And everybody talks about, well, gee, we got Bobby Petrino here, but what's that old saying? You can't make chicken salad out of, we got that. The Aggies, I think, are going to be overrated as always. There's something about the Aggies, and I think we've all seen that over the years, that ever since R.C. Slocum left, the Aggies have been hyped and hyped and hyped, but they never do it. So they've joined the SEC. They've never made the SEC championship game. They paid, and you got to feel, in some respects, you got to feel for them because they are long-suffering fans. But if you had to deal with Aggie fans like I did this weekend with their softball team, coming here to Gainesville, guess what? You said, after when they leave, you say, "Don't come back, please."
Well, I'll tell you one thing. They're sensitive. They want to win. I think, Kevin, look. They put so much money into everything in College Station, and the ROI it's just not there. And the fact that Ross Bjork got another job after putting them into that $75 million debtor's hell with Jimbo Fisher, anything's possible. All right, Kevin, here's another line of them right now. We're talking about Texas and Oklahoma. I listened to a podcast from Sooners Illustrated with a couple of guys yesterday. It's really a good podcast. The Sooners or Texas, who's more SEC ready? We'll kind of rapid fire this one, in your opinion.
Well, the immediate answer, the obvious answer would be Texas.
Yeah.
Coming off a playoff appearance. But they lost a couple of difference makers on that defensive front. And you guys know if there's a position that separates the SEC from everyone else, it's the defensive line. Yeah. And the incredible run of talented players there that make champions. They lost a couple of big-time players there. to the NFL. So how good are they going to be on defense? We know they'll score points under Sark. Quinn Ewers is back. They've got a talented back. They got a talented quarterback room. They've got to replace a running back. How are they ready for the SEC? That's really for both programs. And Ben knows this better than any of us on a personal level. When you've got to play the teams, you got to play week after week after week, and you don't get a break. You don't get, even the bottom feeders in the SEC can give you trouble. It can beat you up physically in some cases. So how are they going to respond physically to playing an SEC schedule, to playing the level of talent that they're going to play week after week after week? And that's what I'm anxious to see, because Texas has not always been the most physical team. And you wonder, are they going to be that under Sark? They were that to some degree last year, and obviously they had that big win in Tuscaloosa. But it's one thing to come into Tuscaloosa and win on occasion. Now go from Tuscaloosa to Gainesville, or Tuscaloosa to Knoxville, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I really want to see. But I would have to say Texas, based on where they are, although I think there's a lot of enthusiasm in Norman that Brent Venables is building that program back and building it on a physical basis. Yeah. Not the Lincoln Riley toss the ball around and score all these points and not be able to stop the other team on 3rd and 2, but have a physical underpinning to that program that maybe they haven't had, certainly since Bob Stoops. Yeah. Well, all right, Ben, along that line, you think about Brent Venables, him and Todd Bates, they're recruiting like crazy to build that defense, just like Sark on the offense. But he mentioned the defensive line at Texas, talking about losing some big-time players. You also lost the best coach, along with Rodney Garner, Bo Davis, of defensive line anywhere in America, and he's in Baton Rouge now, Ben. That's a big damn deal.
It is. Texas is going to be one of those teams that I agree. I mean, the reason why they are always going to be SEC rated is because they get to recruit in the great state of Texas, and they're the biggest brand. I know Dallas Cowboys don't want to hear that, but Texas is the biggest brand in the state of Texas. So they're not. But I also do agree that it's when you're used to being the best team in your conference. Yeah, you're the hunter. Well, you're the hunter now. You're not the best team. You're going to be one of the best teams, but I just think that for a Texas type squad, they really, really good. They're not gonna lack anything. They're not gonna lack, they're not gonna lack that the money they need, the recruiting that they need, the coaching that they got. But I think that when you start talking about the grind, the week in, week out, the SEC, man, it's unforgiving. You don't get a week off. You just really, really don't. Yeah. So I think the days of undefeated is over with. I don't think you're gonna see undefeated no more in the SEC, but I don't think you need to. But I think the thing about Texas is they were doing all they could to get back to the top of the hill of the Big 12. Now they're going to the SEC. They got to start over again, right? Because at first they could not beat Oklahoma. They just couldn't do it. I think they lost to Oklahoma in the last Red River rivalry before they did. To the SEC. Did. So now Texas is good enough to beat anybody in the SEC. That don't mean they're going to do it. Texas is talented enough to stick with everybody in the SEC, but it's that. Every single week. It's that, yes, Ewers could have possibly beat Alabama back-to-back season. I know he got hurt the first game they played in. I know everybody's on Manning watch right now. Everybody, they can't wait to march, get out there and play. But I just think for Texas, yes, they're going to be SEC ready. That don't mean they finna come through and just, they think they finna come through and just run household. It's not going to. And for Oklahoma, Venables, I mean, all those years at Clemson, and he get to recruit SEC because I think he used to lose out on ACC type players. Yeah, within the Big 12. Now, I think some of those kids that go to Oklahoma, because I think his selling point is most kids in the South, they don't know where Oklahoma is at. Like where is Norman, Oklahoma, right? Yeah. And so I'm looking forward to seeing both Texas and Oklahoma in there. I remember when I played with the Vince Youngs and the Bo Scapes of the world. Texas, they love their football, they love their squad, but there's a lot of delusion that goes on too. In Austin, now you talk about delusion going on. I said, look, I played with Vince Young. Y'all been yelling "we back" since Colt McCoy. It's been a while since they've been, but But I am looking forward to having them in the SEC. I think when you talk about you can't get better brand, the only better brand equity you can get out of Texas or Oklahoma is Notre Dame, and they ain't going nowhere. We don't stick to conferences. We got touchdown Jesus over here. We don't worry about conferences.
All right, I like that take. And friends, along Texas, 1970 to 2024, the last 54 years, one national championship in the entire state. They now have 13 Division I football programs out there. You look at the SEC since 1981, 26 national championships and a bunch of runner-ups. Friends, far be it from the Texas people to stretch the truth and embellish a little bit, but your take on that, because I like this throwing the ball around like this with y'all. This is electric, man. I mean, like I say, Ben's probably already knocked out 5 miles and done some work. Franz has been writing since 3 a.m. I know Kevin's got up at 3:30, but this is awesome. Franz, give me your thoughts on Horns or Boomer Sooner, because I know where Norman is, and man, those folks are jacked up about the SEC.
Well, let's start with what's really important, and that is when you go to Austin, you go across the Colorado River into what's called Bubba Land, and over in Bubba Land, you look at these restaurants, and whichever one has the most pickup trucks outside of it, that's where you go eat. That's where that's the good
Memphis.
food is. And now you get up in Oklahoma. Norman is this great big grove of trees in the middle of, it's flat as it can be. You can see a thunderstorm coming from 100 miles out because it looks like this big black wall coming at you. But there is this beautiful grove of trees, and that is Norman. Out in the middle of nothing, there is the grove of trees. And you also notice on the interstate, as you're going into Oklahoma, they have these signs that say Scenic Overlook. So you stop your car, you get out and you look, and it is an overlook. And I guess you could, scenic is all in the eyes of the beholder, because all you see is flat forever and everything like that. But they do in Oklahoma. Oklahoma, Bartlesville produces the greatest barbecue sauce in history at a place called Dink's. I get it by the gallon sent to me. All right.
Love it.
Now, when it comes to football, which I think is what the object of this discussion is, okay?
Yeah.
Texas is going to get the hype. Oklahoma is very much ready. Better than anybody's going to give them credit for, because Brent Venables understands one thing that they don't understand in Texas, because they've spent all these years in the Southwest Conference and then in the Big 12, and they bring in a coach who's all about the offense. Brent Venables understands one thing. In the SEC, if you don't have a defense, you are not going to win football games.
Correct. Yeah.
They're going to be better than anybody expects at Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma is 8 wins or 9 wins this season. I think Texas has the talent. Doesn't mean that they're going to do it. They have the talent to run the table. They also have the history of blowing 1 or 2 ball games that they should not lose. Yeah. That is their history, particularly this thing called the Red River Rivalry, in which they come there, and that dates back to Barry Switzer. Oklahoma would come in there. Freddie Akers would come in there with more talent than you. I mean, just dripping with talent. They had guys on the 8th string that would have started in the SEC. I mean, And guess what? They'd come in there, and Barry Switzer would come out on the field and say, "Okay, boys, go run the ball," and they would, because they couldn't throw it.
Friends, I'm gonna tell you something funny. When Paul Feinbaum was speaking at the Touchdown Club in Memphis last Monday, he said he had recently been out to Norman and visited with Barry Switzer. He said he's doing great for an 87-year-old, and he said, talking about NIL and everything, and Switzer said, "Man." He loves this NIL, and far be it from Oklahoma to have ever done anything outside of the box, Kevin Scarbinsky. But I love this rapid fire stuff with y'all. All right, Kevin, I'm going to put you on the spot, but if you weren't so cerebral, all 3 of y'all, I wouldn't do it. But give me your top 3 games just right now, kind of a swag. That's a term my dad gave me. swag, scientific wild-ass guess at your top 3 matchups in the new and improved 16-team SEC this year.
Well, isn't it amazing we barely mentioned Alabama? It's right. And that Alabama-Georgia game in Tuscaloosa, late September, that is going to be huge. Everyone wants to see what Kalen DeBoer's Alabama is going to be like.
Yep.
You know, what kind of leap forward is Jalen Milroe going to take? He made great improvement during the season last year. So that game really jumps out. Texas A&M. You know, that's a game that should happen. Yeah. It's a shame that it didn't happen for too long, but those guys playing each other again is going to be fun. And Auburn, Oklahoma. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that game. I think that's going to be that may be one of those markers for Auburn to tell you whether they're on the way back or whether it's going to take a little longer.
All right, Ben Troupe, the pride of Swainsboro, Georgia, a 6'4", 246-pound junior.
Man, I mean, I was trying to stick to some of these old rivalries. I mean, I do think Texas go to Arkansas. I think that Texas-Arkansas game.
Oh my God!
Because I mean, obviously, you got to develop new rivalries now. When you talk about the SEC, but that's an old one. You know, yes. I know them Texarkana people. They looking forward to it.
Oh, it's huge.
You know, like nobody's business. I am looking forward to the Georgia-Alabama game only because I cannot wait. Now I ain't rooting for either squad, but I still think Alabama got a shot to still beat Georgia because the thing about the Georgia-Alabama thing that's always the Georgia fans cannot stand is you've never beaten Alabama in the SEC championship game, right? And when you beat them in the national championship game, they was down. They starting receivers, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I know that Fran said Carson Beck is the best quarterback in the country, but there's a guy on the other side. Milroe be like, he might. Yeah, I mean, he might be a better quarterback than me, but I'm at home. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And I would be remiss as a person that never ever been to Austin. My Gators get to go up there to Austin. I've heard about that venue up there. I mean, Florida, Texas, just a regular weekend. Every former Texas player that I played with, I got to change my phone number because they're gonna be texting me talking trash. But I think that and I'm gonna say this: anybody who got to play Oklahoma that ain't never played them, don't look at them when they're not playing you. They're a different squad in person.
Yes,
but I want to see that Texas, Arkansas. Obviously, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, Texas.
I love that. Franz Beard, he's right, man. And then the coolest thing about the Texas OU, the Red River Shootout, is the Texas State Fair. It lasts like a month, and you got Big Tex, that 70-foot, howdy, folks, and welcome to the Texas State Fair, where we've got fried Twinkies wrapped in bacon, dipped in flour, catfish batter, and dipped in hot grease, and turkey legs the size of your head. Friends, give me your top 3 games. And this. Paul Feinbaum said it the other day. He said, this is the biggest thing he can ever remember happening. This is the SEC. Couldn't have picked 2 better schools than what we got. But I know you got a take on it.
Well, I'll give you 2 of them, and unfortunately, they involve the team I despise the most in life.
Vanderbilt.
One of them is Georgia at Alabama on September 28th. Huge game for both.
Yep.
Then on October 19th, Georgia at Texas.
Oh, God.
That is going to be another one that is going to be monstrous. I mean, absolutely monstrous. And the third game, I think, is going to surprise you because that involves the Tennessee Volunteers coming to, and the game and the Florida Gators on October 12th. I think that, Tennessee has, they got to play Oklahoma on the 21st, and then they got Arkansas the next week, so they win that. Then come the Gators and Alabama on back-to-back weekends, and I think that Tennessee is going to learn if they are contenders or pretenders, and I think Florida, by the same token, that's a huge game for the Gators because I think the Gators can win that game. I think the Gators have a very, very legitimate shot at being 5-1 or possibly even 6-0 going into the game with Georgia. It's entirely possible that they could do that because they get Miami at home, they get UCF at home. You know, these are critical ball games for Florida, but you know, as we all know, playing games at home, you know, does make a real difference. But you know, Florida's got Miami, Sanford, the Aggies, all three at home before they have to play at Mississippi State. Then they at UCF at home. Then they get Tennessee, and I think that I think that Florida will be battle tested by them.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna, you know, I know that Junior and Lulu, the ultimate Tennessee fans, will croak at the idea that Graham Mertz is a better quarterback than Nico Iamaleava.
Yeah, Iamaleava. Yeah, I got it right. We got it right. Yeah. Yeah, that's good, friends.
To say that again, I mean, you're
Nico
an Auburn guy.
Iamaleava. Yeah, I've been working on it. I've been taking classes online at Browne Business College.
Well, you know, I think I need to get with that thing, Baffle or whatever that is that they advertise on TV.
Oh yeah, Babble. Yeah,
Baffle, yeah. Babble,
yeah.
Not Baffle.
Yeah,
I'm baffled by Babble. Okay.
Well, but let me throw this one at you, friends. And I'm friends. You just said Georgia at Texas. That's big. I'm gonna throw another one. Like Ole Miss host Georgia this year. Matt Luke coming back as offensive line coach. Well, he's at Clemson, but that's going to be a big game, and that's going to tell us all these additions in the portal that Lane Kiffin has made. 4 of the top 5 defensive linemen in the portal signed by the Rebels, and 2 of the starting 5 from the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line at Washington that fell to Michigan in the national championship game. All right, Kevin, we're going to do one more round of this, and then we'll wrap it up. Kevin, team, coach, whatever, with the biggest upside, most likely to surprise us this year that people ain't talking about. We may already have touched on it, but I know this is on. But this is fun. It's Monday morning, my favorite day of the week.
Oh gosh, I hadn't thought about that one in a while. I have a question. Can Eli, was last year at Missouri a mirage? Yeah. Or can Eli Drinkwitz come back, put another season together like that? Go to the Cotton Bowl, beat Ohio State, you know, win more games than anyone expects. Yeah. Can they be a factor on a consistent basis? Or is it going to be one of those things, like you mentioned, Ben, where, you know, with Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, are you going to be really good one year and not very good the next? Can you achieve some level of consistency? I'm anxious to see what Missouri comes back with this year.
All right, that's better than my question. I do like that, Ben. I'm going to throw it at you. Again, the tectonic plates theory. When Auburn's struggling, when Florida's struggling, when Tennessee's struggling, is that how Missouri rises to the top? 2012, 2013 and 14, 2 of their first 3 years in the SEC, they represented the East in Atlanta against Auburn. Auburn scored like 59 points. The next year, Alabama scored 50-something. But they were there. They're recruiting well. But is Missouri a mirage? I mean, Eli Drinkwitz is I like him a lot, but that's a good question. Your thoughts and comments. I'll hang up, coach, and listen. Go Gators!
I do think it's a mirage for this reason. It's hard. Sustainability is the hardest one. That's the hardest one there is in life and sports, no matter what. Yeah. Mizzou did what nobody thought they could do outside of Mizzou. They what they did in the East. Well, now there are no divisions, right? You feel bad for Eli Drinkwitz. Like, man, we finally get right, and now you take divisions away. Now it's going to be, can you beat the field, right? And I'm gonna give you the one that's, even though there's no longer a West, right? Mizzou did it last year. Nobody expected them to do it. Can Ole Miss do it when everybody expecting them to do it? Can you? I
agree with that. Yeah.
Because the hardest thing to do is get to 9 wins. Then you get to 10. Can you get to 11? Because now, all right, there is no Nick Saban. Alabama's still there, right? LSU, I mean, they don't got no Heisman hopeful, and even when they do, they ain't no Joe Burrow. I like Jaden, Daniels, but he ain't a Joe Burrow 2019 LSU. Can Jackson Dart in that offense like go and do what you expect them to do, and they get them in the portal, and you feeling Franz talked about Georgia having big holes to fill. Ole Miss filled them all with the guys they brought back. But the hardest thing to do is to meet expectation when everybody knows. Hey man, you got a good squad. Y'all might not have the best quarterback in the SEC. Y'all got one of them. Y'all quarterback is really, really good. He got a bunch of guys coming back. Can Ole Miss do it when? Are they gonna still call it the Egg Bowl? Are we still allowed to call it the Egg Bowl? Mississippi State, Ole Miss at the end of the year. But I just think that for me, I don't think Mizzou has staying power. I don't. I think they'll be good. They won't be great. But Ole Miss, can you finally, as my mom would say, can you finally go to Atlanta as a team and not as a family? Because you can go travel to Atlanta. It's a nice place to travel, live at.
Yeah.
But have you seen the inside of Mercedes-Benz?
Yeah.
As a team, I want to see if Ole Miss got to do it, but at the end, but I will say this: if the SEC championship game is Mizzou versus Ole Miss, I'm going to Vegas. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Because I will say this, Ben. Right on. I keep asking this question about Ole Miss. I go to Oxford a lot, and I'm like, "How y'all gonna?" Last year they won 11 games for the first time ever. To put that in perspective, Alabama in the Nick Saban years, his first year they were 7-6. After that, they won 10 or more games every single season. All but one season they won 11 or more. The 2010 season they went 10-3. So Franz, Missouri, they got that NIL deal. You're a high school kid in state. You can start making money. The best Missouri team any of us can remember, 2007, when Gary Pinkel went against Mark Mangino, Slim Whitman's double, the Kansas coach on the sidelines in that warm-up balloon he wore. And 10 of the 11 starters on offense for Missouri were in-state kids. The only out-of-state kid was the quarterback, Chase Daniel. Can Missouri pull off something like that with an NIL deal like this? Or like Kevin and Ben have said, sustainability, I don't see it happening again unless all those other SEC schools are train wrecks.
Well, let's start with one thing, the great trivia question. Who was the cornerback opposite Nick Saban on the Kent State team in 1971?
Gary Pinkel.
Gary Pinkel. Who is the middle linebacker? Who is the middle linebacker on that team?
Jack Ham.
No.
Jack Lambert.
Jack
Lambert.
Yeah.
And the coach was Don James, who at one point in time
United States Marine
was on a staff at Florida State with let's see, Joe Gibbs was on that staff, Bobby Bowden was on that staff, Vince Gibson was on that staff.
Wow.
I mean, some people say the greatest staff ever. Missouri is going to have real difficulty sustaining because of two basic things. NIL, you are right. But if I've got an equal amount of NIL, let's say they're offering me $50,000 at Missouri, and they're offering me $50,000 at, say, LSU. I'm taking the money at LSU. Yeah. If they offer me $50,000 at Florida and they offer me $50,000 at Missouri, Florida, I'm 70 minutes from Crescent Beach, on a slow traffic day, 90 minutes on a heavy traffic day. And it's on a bad winter day, it's 65. On a bad winter day in Missouri, it's 65 below. Missouri has what my Cajun friends would call obstacles in the way. Lots of obstacles.
Yeah.
I don't think they can sustain it. And I think Eli Drinkwitz, to be honest with you, I think he's a really good coach.
Yeah.
And I think he's coaching for his next job. I really do. As much as he could say, I love Missouri and everything like this. If he wins 10 ball games again this year, the real question is going to be, can Missouri hold him? Because he's going to have lots and lots of offers to go someplace where it is possible to sustain winning.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to ask that question to Houston Nutt tonight at the Touchdown Club because he's from Alma, which is right by Fort Smith, is where Eli Drinkwitz is from. So that's going to be a fun one. Hey, catch them all, GatorbaitMedia.com, Franz Beard, Ben Troupe, 84 Reasons Podcast, Kevin Scarbinsky, Scarbo Knows, the Birmingham lead. This is awesome. I love this rapid fire, getting a lot of comments going. I mean, and I don't mean to ever cut anybody off, but getting the three of y'all together is unreal. And I really thank you so much for taking time out of your Monday morning to do this. And let's do it again next week because man, I tell you, the takeaway of this one is not everybody agrees, but one school is pretty much in everything, and that's Texas. There's a lot of talk about when Georgia going to Texas. Is that going to be like, was it February 8th, 1964, when the Beatles landed at JFK Stadium? And there were like thousands of people screaming out there. A lot of our mothers, may have even been there. But and by the way,
I saw them in person in Jacksonville, September 11th, 64.
God, I mean, how cool was that? By the way, Kevin.
36 minutes, 12 songs.
36 minutes, 12 songs. That was quick. Listen, Kevin, Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Audrey and I watched a movie last night with Denzel Washington about a railroad car that got away. Have you ever seen it? It's a true story.
You're talking about Unstoppable.
Yeah. Oh my God. You got with Denzel Washington, who friends told me last week is from Daytona Beach. And but anyway, watch that movie. But Pennsylvania is the most southern state. It's a lot like Alabama between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. They all deer hunt, and there's a couple of pickup trucks up there too. But Kevin, we always love having you on. Ben, Franz, all of y'all. Great job, Brenden, producing. We'll see y'all tomorrow. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Act like it, man. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shopp's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Boss of the Vitamin Shop, 2 locations, Olive Branch and Oxford, Mississippi. Proud to have them as a sponsor of SEC Sidelines, Sports Network, and SECU. Justin, tell us about your stores and why somebody wants to come there.
Rob, thanks for having me. Look, really 3 reasons, I think, why people should come to the Vitamin Shop. One is products. We've got more products than anyone. You're talking vitamins, you're talking sports nutrition, you're talking energy drinks, snack bars, all of that. We've got as much product as anyone in the business. 2, prices. We got the best prices, and we will price match, Rob. If you go to Walmart, you go to Amazon.com, you go to Target and find it, we match. Why not shop local, shop with us? And then finally, our health enthusiasts. The people that work in our store know more about vitamins and supplements than anyone I know. If you come in with any problem, they will help you to find a vitamin or a supplement or any product that'll help you for that problem.
Yeah, I shop there. My wife does. We love it. I think the employees make the difference there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Super helpful. And the knowledge is just unbelievable. Knowledge of the products, knowledge of the human body, fitness, wellness, all that.
Yeah. Look, you get one trip to the plate. Make it count. Take care of yourself. Shop at the Vitamin Shop, Olive Branch, and